afternoon, I'm Mai Rodriguez, and today on Newsfeed at noon, Filipino Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle leads a Rosary service for Pope Francis at St. Peter's Square. The Vatican says the pontiff is still in critical condition but stable. The U.S. and Ukraine agree on a minerals deal as part of Kiev's push to win U.S. support in its war against Moscow. The Philippine National Police admits its convoy violated EDSA busway rules. And more than 1,000 British musicians push back against proposals to let AI firms use their work. Thanks for joining us. We begin in the Vatican, where Filipino Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle leads a rosary service for Pope Francis. Hundreds of devotees gathered at St. Peter's Square, with pilgrims from as far as Brazil and the U.S. joining the prayers for the Pope. The 88-year-old pontiff, who's battling double pneumonia, is in critical condition for the fourth day. But the Vatican says Francis remains stable and guarded and has not had any further respiratory crises. The Pope is now on his 12th night at a hospital in Rome, the longest hospital stay of his papacy.
I think it's in everybody's mind as to what the next steps are going to be, if he's going to, recuperate from this, or, if they're going to start looking into possibly the preferiti and what the next steps are for the Pope who will proceed after this Pope. So it's a little surreal at the moment, and to be here and kind of be this close to the situation has been really eye-opening, and it makes you appreciate it.
I'm feeling that the whole world is praying for Pope Francis, and he's really been a great witness to the world. I think of the mercy of God, his way of showing that this is the core. This is really what Christianity is about: mercy and love.
The United States and Ukraine have agreed on a minerals deal as part of Kiev's push to win U.S. support. The agreement comes after U.S. President Donald Trump called Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky an unpopular dictator. Trump says Zelensky himself could travel to Washington soon to seal the deal.
I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly, it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal, very big deal. And I think the American people, even if you look at polling, they're very happy because, Biden was throwing money around like it's cotton candy, and it's a very big deal. Look, it could be $1 trillion deal, it could be whatever, but it's rare earths and other things. And look, we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukraine and Russia fighting a war that should have never, ever happened. That's a war that would have never happened if I were president.
Trump, meanwhile, wants some form of peacekeeping troops sent to Ukraine if an agreement to end the war is sealed as well. But Russia, which invaded Ukraine 3 years ago, has refused to accept any deployment of NATO forces. Trump is brokering a truce between Moscow and Kiev, even suggesting the war could end within weeks.
You're going to need some form of peacekeeping, so something will be done that's going to be satisfactory to everybody. We need peacekeeping too.
Any situation with American troops involved?
It's actually something I did discuss, but a form of peacekeeping that's acceptable to everybody. Ultimately, we'll be able to agree on something.
President Trump plans to offer the wealthy a new pathway to the U.S. and replace a long-standing visa for investors. Trump says he wants to sell so-called gold cards for $5 million with U.S. residency and a route to citizenship. He adds this new program could start in about 2 weeks. It would replace the 35-year-old EB-5 program, which grants green cards to foreigners promising to invest in U.S. businesses.
I think companies will pay to get people in. For instance, you today graduate from the Wharton School of Finance or Harvard or Stanford or any college, and nobody knows if you can even go to work for a company. So Apple and all these companies that want to get people to be working for them will be able to buy a card, and for the people that are number one in their class at top schools, I see that as one of the things. But generally speaking, it'll be people with money and people that create jobs, and they won't have to pay any tax on income outside of the United States, which they're not paying right now. They're not citizens, but they'll have to pay if they create jobs in the United States. They'll pay full taxes like everybody else. So you're getting big taxpayers, big job producers, and we'll be able to sell maybe 1 million of these cards, maybe more than that. And if you add up the numbers, they're pretty good. As an example, 1 million cards would be worth $5 trillion. $5 trillion.
Wow.
And if you sell 10 million of the cards, that's a total of $50 trillion. Well, we have 35 trillion in debt. That'd be nice. So we'll see. But it could be great. Maybe it will be fantastic. We have it all worked out from the legal standpoint. It's totally legal to do. Hasn't been done before. It's been done in many different forms. We give them away. Why should we give them away? We shouldn't give them away.
Trump also says Russian oligarchs could qualify for the gold cards.
Hey, I know some Russian oligarchs that are very nice people. It's possible. They're not quite as wealthy as they used to be. They're not as wealthy as they used to be. I think they can afford. I think they can afford $5 million.
So
no, a lot of people are going to want to. A lot of people are going to want to be in this country, and they'll be able to work and provide jobs and build companies and pay taxes.
Multiple countries gathering in Rome for a second crack at figuring out how to generate $200 billion a year to help preserve the world's biodiversity. This comes as U.S. President Trump's policy to nix development funding has cast a shadow over efforts to protect the environment. Nations have previously agreed to set up a fund by collecting money from companies that profit from digital sequence information. But negotiators failed to agree on who else should pay and how the funds should be managed. The resumed COP16 talks will conclude on February 27.
In this very polarized, fragmented, divisive, and conflictive geopolitical landscape we are, we have an important responsibility here in Rome. In this 2025, we can send a light globally. And we could be able to say that still, even with our differences, even with the tensions, even with the limited fiscal space in the north and the south, even with the armed conflicts, we are able to collaboratively work together for something that transcends our own interests and that goes beyond, because it connects us and it is life itself.
Last year in Cali, you took important strides towards making that framework a reality. I congratulate you for those achievements. But there is still much work to be done to ensure it can be implemented in full. With the world approaching dangerous tipping points, it is imperative that you reach agreement here in Rome on how biodiversity finance commitments will be honored. I urge all parties to recognize that no one wins if talks fail. No country is immune to this crisis, nor can they address it on their own. We share nature and we depend on nature. Materialism is our only hope. So I call on all parties to do all they can to find common ground and seek solutions. Nature cannot wait.
News here at home, the Philippine National Police admits its convoy violated EDSA busway rules. The vehicles were stopped and ticketed in Ortigas Tuesday night for using the exclusive lane. PNP spokesperson Brigadier General Jean Fajardo neither confirmed nor denied that the convoy was led by the police chief himself, General Romel Marbil. But Fajardo justified the use of the EDSA busway, saying at the time a, quote, senior officer had to reach Camp Crame as soon as possible.
Alam po natin at aware po tayo doon sa existing traffic rules, particularly dyan po sa paggamit po ng carousel lane dyan sa EDSA. It so happen po na ito pong ating opisyal ng PNP na sakay po nitong convoy ay kailangan po na dumaan at gamitin po yung carousel lane because his attendance is urgently needed po sa Camp Crame. Patungo po itong convoy sa Camp Crame because meron pong ginaganap na isang closed door meeting that requires the urgent presence po ng ating officer po. But linawin po natin na yung pong mga sasakyan po na yon ay nagpatikit. Wala po tayong intensyon na mag-entitled po dito sa pagdaan po nito. It so happen po na talagang due to the exigency of the service po ay kailangan pong dumaan po doon to reach Camp Crame the soonest possible time po. For security reason po ay hindi na po natin i-divulge ang identities po ng mga laman po ng convoy. What we can confirm po ay these are senior officers po holding sensitive position.
The Supreme Court gives Congress 10 days to comment on Vice President Sara Duterte's petition against her impeachment. Meantime, Senate President Cheese Escudero stresses he does not want to replace Duterte should she be ousted in her trial. Hannity has the details.
The House prosecution panel is now studying the evidence, preparing for a possible impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte in the Senate. This is after Senate President Cheese Escudero sent a message for lawmakers. Instead of pressuring senators, the House should focus on building a strong case.
Pinag-aaralan na rin po namin kung ano rin po yung mga pwedeng mga legal challenges na amin din pong kakaharapin.
One of the challenges they're anticipating is the argument raised by Duterte's camp, the one-year bar rule, which prohibits the filing of a new impeachment complaint within a year. 4 impeachment complaints were filed in the House. The first 3 were dismissed, but the fourth, which gained more than 2/3 votes from lawmakers, was automatically transmitted to the Senate. Now, the Supreme Court has given the House, the Senate, and House Secretary General Reginald Velasco 10 days to comment on Duterte's petition. Manila 3rd District Representative Joel Chua is part of the 11-man House prosecution team that will present the case in the Senate. He confirms that lawmakers have already started meeting to strengthen their arguments. And amid the commemoration of the EDSA People Power Uprising, Chua joins the call for the Senate to begin the trial.
Ang bola po ngayon ay nasa Senado na. So lahat naman po tayo nag-aantay ngayon kung ano po ang magiging hakbang ng mga senador.
But the Senate is not in a hurry. Senate President Cheese Escudero reiterates the impeachment trial will not be rushed. In Davao City, Duterte's supporters recently dressed in green to symbolize unity against impeachment. Over 200 people gathered under the Protect VP Sara coalition. Escudero sees nothing wrong with showing support, but he also points out to supporters, if Duterte has done nothing wrong, there's nothing to worry about.
Impeachment, hindi ito kinakatakutan. Hindi ito tinatakbuhan palayo. Hindi ito rason para hindi kayo makatulog sa gabi. Legal, konstitusyonal at mapayapang proseso ito ng pagpapanagot ng mga abusado sa pwesto. Ayaw ba natin yon?
And as rumors swirl that Escudero could replace Duterte if she's removed from office, he shuts them down. Under the law, the president chooses a replacement from the legislative chambers with approval of lawmakers. But Escudero says he doesn't want it.
Ang pangit naman nun sa panlasa, kami magdedesisyon, kaugnay niyan, tapos yung pala, interesado ko at gusto ko pala. So ngayon pa lang sinasabi ko na, hindi ako interesado.
Hannity, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Vice President Sara Duterte welcomes the Supreme Court's order for the Senate and the House to comment. on her petition. Her camp says they have complete faith that the court will thoroughly address the legal issues they raised at it being the final arbiter of the law. The COMELEC says more areas in the Bangsamoro region could be placed under the highest level of concern. Let's find out why from our correspondent Joash Malimban, who now joins us live from Manila. Joash, go ahead.
Mai, there will likely be more red category areas of concern in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao following the latest incident of political violence in the region. A video of Dato Piang Vice Mayor Omar Sumama being shot in broad daylight while delivering a speech has gone viral, raising serious concerns over security in the area. According to COMELEC Chairman George Garcia, this is clearly an election-related attack. He also emphasized that election violence is mostly concentrated in Maguindanao and Cotabato, making them the most volatile areas in BARM. Garcia further revealed that many incidents of violence in the region go unreported, including cases involving children. Right now, there are 38 areas classified under the red category due to serious threats ahead of the polls. Out of this, 32 are located in BARM. To address security concerns, COMELEC is in constant coordination with the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. COMELEC has also confirmed that personnel in certain high-risk areas are armed for their own protection. Should the violence worsen, COMELEC may place these areas under its strict or direct control. Meanwhile, COMELEC has also released new updates regarding the BARM elections. When the election pushes through, in October, ballots will include the names and photos of candidates, logos and political sectoral parties, and a none of the above option. COMELEC also clarified that the reopening of accreditation for political and sectoral parties is unlikely, given that thousands of applications were originally filed. Meanwhile, areas affected by the reapportionment of the vacant Sulu seats are expected to reopen their filing of certificate of candidacies in June. Back to you, Mai.
George, what exactly will the COMELEC do if these areas in the BARM remain under the highest level of concern, even on Election Day?
Mai, aside from the possibility that COMELEC will place these local government units under COMELEC control, the COMELEC also mentioned that they are preparing 7,000 police personnel from the Philippine National Police to serve as electoral board members. This ensures that even in high-risk areas, the election process will go smoothly and securely. In addition to that, the Commission also mentioned that they are closely monitoring security operations with the AFP and the PNP to make sure that high-risk areas will be safe in the day of the election. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you, Josh. Malimban there reporting. The Filipino Army confirms hackers tried to break into their system but were unsuccessful. The Navy also says no data was compromised when it was targeted by a supposed cyber attack as well. Francis Falve reports.
Deep Web Connect broke the news online. An alleged cyber hacking targeting the Philippine Army. This comes just days after an attack on the cyber system of the Philippine Navy. According to the website, the full extent of the data breach remains undetermined, but it is being considered a national security concern. Philippine Exodus Security has claimed responsibility for the attack, pointing out weaknesses in the Army and Navy cyber domains. In a social media post, they stated that they compromised the accounts of more than 10 high-ranking Philippine Army officials, along with several officers connected to the top brass. However, their social media account is no longer available. According to the Army, no data or information was compromised from their cyber domain.
We have detected an attempt to intrude doon sa Philippine Army cyber system. However, wala naman, as per verification, hindi napasok yung ating system and walang data na compromise. However, as we are talking, the whole cyber unit of the Philippine Army is now conducting thorough investigation and continuing enhancement of the cyber system of the Philippine Army to ensure na secure yung ating system from these kind of attempts.
The Army spokesperson added that they have identified the group behind the attack. However, this information will not be made public yet as the investigation is still ongoing. The Navy has also admitted to what they call an illegal intrusion into their cyber system and said they are investigating the extent of its impact.
You cannot term it as a hacking, it's just an illegal intrusion into our system. The whole Navy IT infrastructure was not breached at all, and we are further ensuring that no other breaches will be occurring anytime soon.
The AFP clarified that last year they monitored thousands of attempts, with similar incidents reportedly occurring in other government agencies, underscoring the need to strengthen their cybersecurity hub. Francis Polbe, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
We're taking a break. Still ahead, amid rumors of an impending revamp, the palace says President Bongbong Marcos is evaluating his cabinet. Keep it here on Newsfeed at noon. You're watching Newsfeed at noon. The Health Department recently launched a simultaneous cleanup drive to eliminate dengue breeding sites. This comes amid rising cases of the disease. For more on this, we have on the line DOH Assistant Secretary Albert Domingo. ASEC Domingo, good afternoon to you.
Yes, hi Mai, good afternoon, and good afternoon to all of our viewers and listeners.
First off, ASEC, how many dengue cases have been recorded so far, and what areas have recorded the most number of cases? If we may recall, Quezon City just declared a dengue outbreak that was almost 2 weeks ago because of a 200% rise in dengue cases from the previous year.
Right. As of February 15, Mai, our dengue case count nationwide from January 1 to February 15 is still at 43,732. This is 56% higher compared to the 27,995 cases recorded in the same period last year. We did see a slight plateauing, a slowdown in the number of cases in the increase. For example, from January 5 to 18, the number nationwide was tallied at 15,904, but this declined by 5% to 15,134 from January 19 to February 15. The top three regions where we are seeing many cases are still Calabarzon, this is region 4A, with 9,113 cases, followed by the National Capital Region at 7,551, and finally the Central Luzon region, or region 3, at 7,362. There are 17 local government units that are considered to be hotspots. It's up to them to declare if there is an outbreak, and Quezon City is one of them.
But after Quezon City, ASEC, wala pa namang nagde-declare ng outbreak.
Nasa kanila yun, Mai, kasi in our law, Republic Act 11332, the power and the authority to declare outbreaks belongs to the local chief executive. So we'll have to wait if they will declare.
Right. So as we've mentioned, ASEC, the DOH has launched a program, a cleanup drive called Alas 4 Contra Mosquito. Tell us more about this.
Correct, Mai. Alas 4 Contra Mosquito is a reminder to all of us that every day, every single day, not just now, but for the whole year, every 4 o'clock, dapat lumalabas po tayo at hindi lang nagwawalis-walis. Let's look at the surroundings. areas where there will be accumulation of water at kailangan ating tuyuin, yung sabi nga namin na tuyo, taktak, takip, taob. Yan yung mga kailangan nating gawin to make sure that the water does not accumulate and that mosquitoes will not breed. Kasi mosquitoes are the ones that bring dengue.
So, Asik, what else should be done to prevent the rise of dengue cases? Tell us about some of the best practices for LGUs, for households, for schools. And ano po ba yung update doon sa, if I remember, there's this one program that offers cash rewards or prize money to catch mosquitoes.
Sige, let's begin with that program, yung sinasabi na binabayaran daw yung piso para sa mosquito. We don't quite agree with that approach. So we understand that there are good intentions, but we have to look at what works. And what works is vector control. Now, yes, we do want to get rid. Gusto nating walang kiti-kiti, gusto nating walang lamok, pero hindi po kasi maganda yung bibigyan mo ng incentive para magbigay ng lamok at ng ating larvae or yung kiti-kiti. Mas maganda po, magbigay nilang tayo ng incentive sa cleanliness. For example, yung mga purok, no, na malinis at walang nakaipon na tubig, bigyan natin ng contest yun at yun ang ating incentivize. Now, for the schools, we've been hearing and we are in agreement na yung ibang schools, they no longer require yung nakapalda, yung skirt or shorts for the uniform while there is a dengue para bang incident going on. What they do is they require physical education uniforms, jogging pants para covered yung skin. And you can always use insect repellent lotions or sprays dun sa mga exposed skin para hindi makagat.
And experts have said na itong dengue hindi na seasonal, it's year-round.
Yeah, it's the climate change, no? Yung sinasabing extreme weather events. So, pag sinabi extreme weather, look at the date now. It's February 26, no? And yet we are hearing of flooding in Palawan because of the shear line. We're looking at the intertropical convergence zone. The amihan, which used to be, sabi nga natin, lumalamig lang yan, pero it's still dry. It now brings with it some rains, and this is climate change. It's upon us, nangyayari na.
So as a reminder to our viewers, what are the dengue symptoms to look out for? Kasi it's alarming that there have been deaths recorded from dengue, especially doon nga sa Quezon City.
The number of deaths we are recording, Mai, compared to the number of cases we are detecting is actually in an acceptable range. Don't get me wrong, bawat buhay mahalaga. Pero in public health, we look at the case fatality rate. Ibig sabihin, pagka every 1,000 Filipinos with dengue, ilan na namamatay? We're looking at around 4 every 1,000 Filipinos. That's an acceptable number because countries like Singapore, more advanced health systems, they're detecting and treating the same rate. So CFR, case fatality rate, is at 0.38% as of the latest. We want to bring it further down. And yung mga sintomas tulad ng lagnat na mataas yung temperatura, 40 degrees and up, dapat first day pa lang, pinapakonsulta na natin yan. Kasi hindi naman kailangan umabot sa punto na dinudugo tayo kung tayo ay alam kagad na dengue at nahahydrate.
Oo nga, let me clarify that, Asek, kasi nakaka-alarma ang sinasabi ko dahil bakit umaabot na namamatay yung pasyente?
Okay. So if you're concerned na bakit hindi dinadala kagad, tama ka doon na May, no, na hindi natin inaantay. We should not wait, no, na parang kasi nagkakaroon ng perspective na baka pag dinala ko sa ospital, lalo na sa usapang gastos, natatakot. Well, to also update everyone, PhilHealth has already increased its case rates for dengue. For mild dengue, yung dating 10,000, tinaas nila to 19,500. Yung severe dengue, umabot na ng 47,000. And that's important kasi wag mong matatakot ang ating mga kababayan kapag nagkonsulta sila. Pwede mo konsulta at hindi ganun kalaki yung gastos.
Magandang balita yan, Asek, na tumaas yung coverage para dito sa dengue, no?
Correct. And at saka napansin kasi namin, May, na may mga pasyente hindi pupunta kasi nga sasabihin, hindi lang ako pupunta, baka mamaya hindi nga ako duguin pero duguin naman yung wallet ko. Ay ngayon hindi na po. Inaayos po ng PhilHealth para hindi ho duduguin yung ating wallet.
Also, as a reminder to our viewers, Asek, how do you distinguish it from just the flu?
Right. Number one is the fever. 40 degrees centigrade, 40 centigrado, pataas ang dengue natin. And dengue symptoms are often accompanied by headache, particularly yung sinasabi nilang pain behind the eyes. Masakit yung ulo sa loob, sa likod ng ating mata. Then you can also have rashes and sometimes vomiting, pagsusuka. at yung pagkaduwal. Pero as I remind, no, sa lagnat pa lang, kahit day 1 pa lang, dalhin nyo na po sa doktor para ma-check. Kasi kung hindi naman dengue yan, at least peace of mind and maasikaso natin kung ano man yung ibang cause.
Okay, tama. Maraming salamat. Thank you for your time this afternoon, Asek. Maraming salamat.
You're welcome, Mai, and good afternoon.
Newly installed Transportation Chief Vince Dizon reveals plans to provide a faster and more efficient transportation system in Metro Manila. The details from Sujin Kim.
The Metro Manila subway, the country's most ambitious transport project, is moving forward with a 488 billion peso price tag. Transport Secretary Vince Dizon says the government will tackle every challenge from construction delays to right-of-way issues. But one thing is clear, the project cannot be stopped.
The subway is probably the most challenging project this country has ever undertaken, ever. So we have to tackle that. No, I understand the concerns and the worries of the owners of those houses. No, but this subway plan cannot be stopped. This is going to go through, and we are committed to finishing this project.
Dizon admits the country is a laggard in infrastructure development and major operational improvements are needed to modernize public transportation.
That's a given. The first step to solving a problem is acknowledging that there is a problem. But there are solutions. There are solutions. They're there. They're already being built.
The Transport Department is rolling out short-term, medium-term, and long-term fixes to transform Metro Manila's transport system. Immediate measures include stricter bus stop regulations, round-the-clock enforcement, and better navigation signs for commuters. In the coming years, DOTR plans to expand transport infrastructure and build more concourses. Dizon also thanked the SM Group for donating 2 transport concourses in SM North EDSA and SM Megamall. These will serve as blueprints for future busway stations across Metro Manila. These stations are set to open by February 2026. Looking ahead, the administration is ramping up public-private partnerships across all transport sectors to ensure efficient operations and maintenance.
We are going to collaborate with the private sector in all sectors of the OTR: land, air, water, rail. This is the belief of the President as well. The best way to ensure that infrastructure facilities, airports, ports, railways, busways, BRTs, everything, is through public-private partnership. That is the best way to ensure that they will be operated and run well, and they will be maintained well.
With more PPP projects underway, the DOTR is fast-tracking modernization to make commuting more reliable, faster, and more convenient for Filipinos.
Let us also focus on finishing the big projects that will really be the game-changing infrastructure projects that will make the daily lives of commuters and motorists better. No, and we're talking about the trains, the subway, the MRTs, the LRTs.
Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Philippine Stock Exchange secures majority control of the Philippine dealing system. In a disclosure, the PSE announced it has finalized the purchase of an additional 18.8% stake from the Bankers Association of the Philippines and some of its member banks. This raises its total ownership in the PDS to 78.33%. But 2 member banks did not complete the deal, leaving room for further developments. The PSE has long pushed to consolidate stock and bond trading under a single platform, aligning the Philippines with more advanced financial markets. A fully integrated exchange would reduce transaction costs, improve market liquidity, and make it easier for investors to trade across asset classes. The Securities and Exchange Commission still needs to approve the merger. Still to come, a near tragedy at Chicago Midway Airport, where a Southwest Airlines flight narrowly avoided collision with a business jet. That and more when Newsfeed at Noon returns. Stay with us.
Good morning, I'm Mikey Orata and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Some good news for the economy. The Philippine financial system's resources continue to grow. Thousands gather in Washington to protest massive government reforms under President Donald Trump. Airfares are set to rise in March, but by how much? And that's it for Business 360. I'm Mikey Orata. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The case fatality rate, the recent tally as of February 1 is 0.32%. To give you an idea, internationally, the recommendation is to aim for 0.05. But if you're doing 0.4% lower, you're doing okay. We are at 0.32. What does 0.4% mean? It means out of 1,000 people with dengue, only 4 people will die. So in public health, you want to keep that number 0 as much as possible. But in reality, you will always have a death. So how do you do that? One is you test, which is why probably we have a lot of cases. We are testing faster because there is a test for dengue, the NS1 test. The way to fight dengue is cleanup drives. You don't want old tires, you don't want trash hanging around so that water will not collect. So if you're able to incentivize 1 peso per 5 regulars, then maybe there's an equivalent amount that you can set so that you can have a contest like a palinisan ng mga purok in a barangay. The purok that is the cleanest at the end of the week or at a certain interval gets to win a prize. Doesn't have to be monetary. It can be like brownie points, diba?
Yeah.
So these creative, there's another version. In another barangay, they will release frogs again.
Yes.
So yun naman, ang concern namin, it's more of an environmental concern. DNR will probably speak more on this. But you don't just release species of a particular animal in an area because you might disrupt the local environment.
From the filing of candidacies until the last ballot is counted, your newest trusted news source, BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel, will be at the forefront to guide your decisions and guard your vote. Tune in to BNC's Election 2025 special coverage. This February, let's celebrate love in all its beautiful forms. Whether it's romance, friendship, or family, love makes every moment special. From our hearts to yours, Happy Love Month.
You're watching Newsfeed at noon. Again, the headlines. Filipino Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle leads a Rosary service for Pope Francis at St. Peter's Square. The U.S. and Ukraine agree on a minerals deal as part of Kiev's push to win U.S. support in its war against Moscow. The Philippine National Police admits its convoy violated EDSA busway rules. And more than 1,000 British musicians push back against proposals to let AI firms use their work. A 14-year-old Chinese student who was kidnapped last week has been rescued. The Philippine National Police says they found the minor abandoned along Macapagal Avenue in Parañaque City on February 25. He was then brought to St. Luke's Medical Center in BGC for a medical examination. The PNP says no ransom was paid. An investigation is underway to determine the circumstances of the case and to identify those responsible for the kidnapping. Amid rumors of an impending revamp, the palace says President Bongbong Marcos is evaluating members of his cabinet. But the Presidential Communications Office clarifies recent leadership changes in government agencies were not a result of the evaluation.
Like po, Secretary Cesar Chavez, voluntary po yung resignation niya, so wala po tayong magagawa kung hindi talaga maghanap ng kanyang kapalit. Wala pa po tayo nadidinig, nag-i-evaluate pa lang po. It's just normal for the President. Kasi every time, kailangan naman mag-evaluate ng Pangulo eh. Kung kanyang mga secretaries, cabinet members are doing well for the government, for the people. So, pag nakita po ng Pangulo na, oops, mukhang hindi ito makakatulong, we have to find a new leader, and it's for the people. Pero as of now, wala pa po talaga.
Malacanang also intensifying its crackdown on fake news. President Marcos tells PCO officials to monitor vloggers spreading misinformation. On Bilyonaryo News Channel's agenda, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro also says existing laws on cyber libel are not enough to pin down those behind fake news.
Kailangan po na may bagong batas. Kumbaga, pandagdag lang po, Ms. Corina, dahil meron naman po tayong batas patungkol sa cyber libel. Meron din po tayong batas tungkol sa false news. Pero hindi pa po kasi masyadong, hindi pa po to expanded to the point na dapat, let's say, may registration bang kailangan, ano yung mga dapat na implementing rules para makita natin na itong mga fake news vloggers na to ay maaari talagang matanggal o mawala sa isang social media platforms. Yun po dapat talaga ang tutukan ng lawmakers kung paano ito maaayos para hindi na kumalat man yung mga fake news vloggers.
The palace and the armed forces welcome the Trump administration's decision to exempt Philippine military assistance from its foreign aid freeze. Francis Falve reports.
$366 million in U.S. military aid is not included in the foreign aid freeze ordered by U.S. President Donald Trump. According to AFP Public Affairs Office Chief Colonel Cersas Trinidad, the funding will benefit defense activities on land, air, and sea, including cybersecurity.
And it also signals basically our long-standing relationship with the U.S. and the Philippines. It has further strengthened the ties between the two countries. On the development or its particular use, we leave it to our top leadership. On the particular acquisition and development of EDSA sites and other programs.
The palace also welcomed this development.
Of course, natutuwa po tayo, nagkaroon nga po ng direktiba si US President Trump na 90 days magkakaroon ng i-freeze ang foreign aid. So kung nagkaroon po tayo ng exemption at nagkaroon po tayo at ibibigay po at i-release ang $500 million foreign Filipino financing sa atin, ito po ay napakalaking bagay at nagpapasalamat po tayo sa suporta na yan. Tandaan po natin, ito pa ay mula sa pamahalaan po ni dating Pangulo na US President Biden at ito pa rin po ay pinagtibay din po sa panahon po ni President Donald Trump.
Last year, former U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and State Secretary Antony Blinken announced a $500 million aid package from the U.S. to support the modernization of the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine Coast Guard. According to the Department of Foreign Affairs, the AFP is one of the recipients of the exemption granted under Trump 2.0. This move highlights the commitment of both the Philippines and the U.S. to strengthening their defense cooperation and interoperability. Francis Polbe, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Britain is raising defense spending as Prime Minister Keir Starmer prepares to meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington. It will be raised to 2.5% of the GDP by 2027 and 3% in the longer term, while overseas development budget will be reduced. Britain last spent 3% of the GDP on defense back in 1993. Trump has repeatedly called on NATO members like Britain to spend more on defense. A near tragedy at Chicago Midway Airport. A Southwest Airlines flight was forced to abort a landing to avoid a collision with a business jet that entered the runway without authorization. Reports say the plane was just 250 feet away as it passed over the smaller aircraft. The Federal Aviation Administration is investigating the incident. We're taking another breather. Still to come, Drake getting his revenge on Kendrick Lamar, at least on the Billboard charts. The details when we return. You're watching Newsfeed at noon. You're watching Newsfeed at noon. In sports, Cristiano Ronaldo inching closer towards a career milestone. The 40-year-old Portuguese superstar scored his 925th career goal in Al Nassr's 2-0 victory over Al Weda in the Saudi Pro League. This is Ronaldo's 17th goal in the current league campaign. The 5-time Ballon d'Or winner is now just 75 short of amassing a total of 1,000 official goals across his career. In entertainment, British musicians pushing back against proposed changes to the country's copyright laws. The amendments would allow tech firms to train their AI models using artists' work. On Tuesday, more than 1,000 music stars, led by Kate Bush and Cat Stevens, protested against the proposals by releasing a silent album called Is This What We Want? The album featured recordings of empty studios and performance spaces, which supposedly represent the amendment's potential impact on their livelihood.
There's no choice but to campaign about this really salient issue. Generative AI competes with the work that it's trained on and the people behind that work. And that's why this is so terrible. We're not saying get rid of AI, but all of us, thousands of musicians who've come together, are absolutely adamant that we need to protect the value of copyright. Copyright protects our work, but also it enables us to create new music and create great content for the music industry. It's absolutely terrible that the blue chip companies are effectively going to be profiting from all our work before we've even released it.
In a separate letter, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Elton John, and Paul McCartney also warned about the proposals, saying the current copyright system is, quote, one of the main reasons why rights holders work in Britain. Dozens of other artists, including Dua Lipa and Ed Sheeran, signed the letter. Meanwhile, Drake cools down Kendrick Lamar's red-hot momentum on the music charts. Drizzy's latest album, Some Sexy Songs for You, debuts on top of the Billboard 200 charts, ending the 13-week reign of K-Dot's smash 6th record, GNX. This comes after Kendrick took aim at Drake during his Super Bowl halftime performance earlier this month. According to Billboard, Some Sexy Songs for You is Drake's 14th chart-topping album. He is now tied with Jay-Z and Taylor Swift for the most #1 records among soloists in Billboard's nearly 7-decade history. Only the Beatles have more with 19. And with just days to go before the Oscars, excitement builds up not only for who will get the coveted awards, but also for the red carpet. The annual event offers celebrities a platform to make daring fashion statements. According to De Beers, one of the oldest diamond suppliers, this year's It styles include bold statement earrings and necklaces. But while being cutting edge is thrilling, some celebrities prefer to stick with timeless, simple, solitaire diamond classics that still turn heads.
What we see on the carpet more is that it's a statement, right? It's either a big statement earring or a big statement necklace, maybe with a ring. I think the smaller layered pieces, maybe in the smaller events, the more casual events, like the Spirit Awards. But for the Oscars, it's pretty much go big or go home. Another big trend we've been seeing this year is the big statement earring, whether it's dangly, whether it's chandelier. We have some really great ones here. This one from our Alchemist of Light collection is interesting because it's made with titanium, so use of kind of innovative, different kind of metals. We're seeing a lot of kind of innovation in that sense.
The 97th Academy Awards will take place March 3, Philippine time. And those are the news this hour. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Keep it here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Good afternoon.